The air in Il Giardino was heavier than usual that evening, heavy with the aroma of garlic and remorse, as Deacon Sharp stood across from Sheila Carter in the dimly illuminated back room of the restaurant he had constructed from the ashes of his own salvation. The area that had signified his new beginning now felt like a cage closing in on him. Sheila, her signature passion burning in her eyes, had grabbed him after another tense day in which secret murmurs had spread like wildfire throughout the Forrester and Logan circles. Deacon had borne the weight of his treachery for weeks, if not months, with remorse gnawing at him every time he looked at the lady who had once been his unlikely companion in turmoil and, against all odds, in anything approximating romance. Deacon's relationship with Taylor Hayes began as a glimmer, an unforeseen connection born of shared weaknesses, late-night chats at the restaurant, and the kind of understanding that only two people traumatized by the same world could provide each other. Taylor, who appeared graceful and collected on the outside, had been dealing with her own demons, the pull of old flames and new prospects pulling at her resolve. Deacon, who was married to Sheila in a partnership that defied logic and morality, was drawn to Taylor's calm strength and ability to recognize the man underlying his flaws. What started as a friendship quickly turned into stolen moments, whispered confessions, and, eventually, desire that neither could deny. He'd convinced himself it was just temporary, that he could compartmentalize, keep Sheila in the dark, and fantasize about an other existence. But secrets in Los Angeles, particularly among the Forresters and their extended circle, were seldom kept hidden for long. The judgment arrived without fanfare. Sheila had overheard enough parts to piece together the jigsaw and confronted him with the unnerving calm she used as a weapon. Instead of screaming in wrath, as everyone expected of the woman who had previously shot her own son and plotted several scams, she merely gazed at him, demanding the whole truth. "No more lies, Deacon," she had said quietly and steadily. "Tell me everything." At that moment, something inside him broke. The man who had spent years avoiding accountability, clawing his way back from rock bottom just to stumble again, knew he couldn't hide anymore. Deacon slid into a chair, his hands quivering as he started speaking. He began with the beginning. Taylor's visit to Il Giardino in search of quiet after another round of family drama, how their chats had gotten personal, and how he felt seen in a way he hadn't since before everything went wrong in his life. He acknowledged to flirtations, late evenings when Sheila was asleep or out, and kisses that crossed lines he vowed never to cross again. He described the shame that came with each contact, how he would return home and hug Sheila closer, as if to compensate for the betrayal she was unaware of. Tears welled up in his eyes, true, unfiltered tears, as he admitted that he had fallen in love with Taylor and that the feelings were not transitory, but deep and consuming. He talked about his humiliation and how he despised himself for hurting the woman who had stood by him when no one else would, forgiven him for his past crimes, and forged a future with him despite everything. Sheila listened without interruption, her expression controlled. Her fingers grabbed the table's edge so hard that her knuckles turned white, but she did not lash out. Not yet. Deacon's voice cracked when he reached the point where he sought forgiveness. "I don't deserve it," he said, his head dropped. "I know that. I've lied to you, betrayed you in the worst way. You gave me a second chance, Sheila. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I threw it away for something I thought would make me feel whole. But it didn't. It just made everything worse." He looked her in the eyes, pleading. "Please forgive me. Yell at me, hit me, throw me out, do whatever you need to. Just don't shut me out completely. I love you, Sheila. I still do. I messed up so badly, but I don't want to lose you." The silence that followed seemed forever. Sheila's breathing was measured and methodical, as if she was assessing each word he said against their common past. Their love had always been a combustible mix of passion and danger, with two broken souls finding solace in each other even as the world condemned them. Sheila had her own dark past, including shootings, manipulations, and a preoccupation with family that nearly ruined her. Deacon had accepted everything, loved her through everything, and helped her rebuild. Now the positions had been flipped, and the pain on her face was raw and unprotected. When she finally spoke, her tone was low but firm. You think words can fix this, Deacon? You think begging can erase the nights you spent with her while I waited here, thinking we were working on something real? She took a step closer, her stare sharp. I forgave you before for things that should have ended us. I overlooked the red flags because I wanted this life with you. But this is different. You didn't just cheat. You fell in love. You chose her in your heart long before your body followed. Deacon reached for her hand, but she motioned away. I know, he whispered. I know it's unforgivable. But I'm here, laying it all bare. No more secrets. If you want me gone, I'll go. If you want to make me suffer, I deserve it. Just tell me there's a chance, any chance, that we can find our way back. Sheila turned away, staring out at the empty restaurant floor where patrons had laughed and dined unaware of the storm brewing behind closed doors. Memories flooded her mind. The day Deacon proposed in his rough-around-the-edges style, the evenings they spent tangled together, and how he protected her when the Forrestas dubbed her a monster. She had changed for him, or attempted to. She had fought her instincts, stayed out of trouble, and turned Il Giardino into a success. And now this. The confrontation did not finish with an immediate conclusion. Sheila was unable to grant forgiveness on the spot. The wound was too fresh, and the treachery too deep. She told him she needed time to digest, to decide whether the love she felt surpassed the anguish he had caused. Deacon nodded and accepted whatever happened next. He offered to sleep on the couch and give her room in their shared home above the business, but she declined. Stay, she said eventually. But don't touch me. Not tonight. Not until I figure out if I can look at you without seeing her. Over the next few days, the tension permeated every interaction. At Il Giardino, Deacon labored mechanically, his charm forced on clients as his thoughts replayed the confession repeatedly. Sheila walked across the space like a ghost, pleasant but aloof, with smiles that never reached her eyes. Hope's concerned queries, Taylor's guilty avoidance, and Finn's suspicious observations all helped spread the word, albeit slowly at first. Ridge had spent so much time here, making life-changing decisions, dreaming, arguing, and loving. And where he died. She paused in the doorway, her heart heavy and her thoughts looking for something, anything, that could make sense of everything. That's when she realized it. A minor feature that may easily be overlooked. A glass. Half full, sitting on the desk's edge. It had not been there before. Or had it? Her breath caught as she approached, her gaze fixated on the object. It appeared tiny, yet something about it felt off. Out of place. She called the detective, her voice urgent. When he realized what she was pointing at, his expression shifted. He quickly ordered that it be collected as evidence. Fingerprints. DNA. It was a lead. A real one. For the first time since Ridge's discovery, there was hope that the truth would not remain buried indefinitely. Everyone in that house knew that the truth was rarely straightforward. And when it was revealed, it changed everything. Because the killer was not a stranger hiding in the shadows. The killer stood in the room, looked Ridge in the eyes, and took an irreversible decision. Someone who was convinced they had a reason. Someone who felt they had no other options. Someone was still among them, waiting, hoping that their secret would not be found. The tension in Los Angeles had been building for months, creating the kind of slow-burn suspense that the bold and the beautiful relies on, with every gaze, whisper dispute, and unsolved grudge feeling like it may explode at any time. Ridge Forrester, the Forrester family's immortal heart, the man whose love and business decisions impacted generations, had been treading a fine line. His most recent reconciliation with Brooke Logan was frail, cobbled together after yet another round of uncertainty, treachery charges, and passionate makeups. However, behind the surface, old foes remained, new alliances developed in the shadows, and the weight of previous sins weighed down harder than ever. It occurred on a quiet evening at the Forrester Mansion, a large estate that had seen many successes and tragedies. Ridge had been working late in his office, drawing patterns for the upcoming collection, his mind torn between inspiration and the nagging anxiety he had felt since returning from yet another trip abroad. Brooke had departed earlier for a meeting with Hope at Forrester Creations, or so she claimed, information that would eventually prove critical in piecing together the timeline. The house was mostly vacant. Eric was sleeping, Steffi and Finn were out with the kids, and Thomas was on his own journey of redemption or obsession, depending on who you asked. Rich decided to call it a night and head to the living room for a drink before bed. What he hadn't expected was the figure waiting in the faint light. A fight broke out, with words as sharp as knives and accusations flying about loyalty, long-buried secrets, and the never-ending triangle that defined his life. Ridge, ever the fighter, kept his ground and refused to back down. The debate heated up, with voices shouting and hands flailing violently. Then came the push, the stumble, or perhaps something more deliberate, a strike delivered in wrath, a weapon grasped in the heat of desire. Ridge toppled, slamming into the floor, leaving a dark, shimmering puddle of blood. Face down and unmoving, his characteristic swagger has been reduced to quiet. The discovery occurred hours later. Brooke arrived home first, her keys jingling in the solitude, crying out for Ridge with her usual mix of tenderness and frustration. She came around the corner into the living room and froze. There he was, her husband, the love of her life, face down in a pool of blood, the scarlet contrasted against the marble floor. Her scream broke the night. She went to her knees and carefully turned him over, putting her hands on the wound, blood soaking her clothing as she implored him to hold on.
Ridge.
Oh God, Ridge, stay with me. Paramedics arrived in a rush, sirens blaring through the gates, and whisked him to the hospital, where physicians worked to stabilize him. He was barely alive, critical condition, internal bleeding, and a head injury that rendered him comatose. The family gathered, Steffi sobbing in Finn's arms, Thomas pale and disturbed, Eric leaning on a cane for support, Brooke refusing to leave his bedside. The cops arrived swiftly and turned the mansion into a crime scene. The living area was blocked off with yellow tape as forensic teams dusted for prints and collected evidence from the scene. The weapon, a heavy crystal decanter splattered with blood, was discovered nearby, indicating an impulsive rather than deliberate crime. There was no forced entry, nor were there any signs of a struggle beyond the dispute. This referred to someone who was well-known and trustworthy enough to approach. In Los Angeles, the issue of who attacked Ridge Forrester dominated every conversation. Brooke was initially the target of suspicion. She had been the last to see him alive, or so it appeared. Her relationship with Ridge was legendary, passion that frequently erupted into explosive confrontations. Whispers circulated about her recent frustrations, Ridge's lingering stares at Taylor, his protective attitude over his children at her expense, and his sometimes distant demeanor. A handkerchief with her initials was found near the body, though she insisted it could have been dropped earlier. Brooke's teary denials rang out in interviews with Detective Sanchez. "I love him. I would never hurt him." However, the optics were damning, another Logan Forrester drama that ended in violence. Then there was Bill Spencer. Dollar Bill had never entirely let go of Brooke, and his obsession was a persistent presence. Recent tensions had risen. Ridge's comments about Bill's shortcomings, Bill's veiled threats about safeguarding what was his. Bill had a goal: regaining Brooke, removing the rival who had always won her back. Alibis were checked. Bill claimed to be at Spencer Publications, but there were gaps. Rumors circulated that a ring, his distinctive bold design, had been noticed in security film near the estate. Bill's denial was fierce. "If I wanted Ridge gone, I'd do it cleaner. This mess isn't my style." Sheila Carter loomed large in everyone's minds. The woman who had shot her own son, twisted lives for decades, and lately battled her way to redemption, or so she claimed, had every motive to target Ridge. He had rejected her, shielded Finn from her influence, and labeled her a monster several times. Sheila's whereabouts that night were unclear. She said she was in Il Giardino with Deacon, but there were few witnesses. The image of Sheila, knife or blunt weapon in hand, pursuing revenge seemed almost too predictable, yet terrifyingly real. "Sheila's capable of anything," Steffi said to Finn. "She always comes back for more pain." Thomas Forrester couldn't be ignored. His background of instability, obsessions with hope, dark plans using mannequins and lies, made him a wild card candidate. Ridge had been harsh on him lately, pushing him to mature and criticizing his designs and decisions. Thomas had stormed out of the home earlier that week, following a furious disagreement with his father. Could animosity have bubbled over? Thomas said he was innocent, but his eyes flashed frantically during interrogation, and his alibi was flimsy. Taylor Hayes joined the suspect pool. The other woman in Ridge's everlasting triangle had suffered heartbreak after heartbreak as a result of his actions. Could the recent facts about her health, her private pain, and Ridge's decision to choose Brooke again have converted despair into rage? Taylor's cool exterior crumbled under strain. She admitted to being near the mansion that evening, dropping off files for Steffi, but departed before anything happened. Or did she? Deacon Sharp, caught up in his own web of confessions and loyalties, was also under inspection. His troubled relationship with Sheila, his previous fights with Ridge, all pointed to a possible reason. However, Deacon's sorrow for recent betrayals made him appear less likely to add violence to his list. The probe became more in-depth as Ridge lay in the hospital, devices beeping continuously. Clues emerged gradually. A partial fingerprint on the decanter, a strand of hair that did not match Ridge or Brooke, and an overheard phone call minutes before the attack in which Ridge argued with someone about ending this once and for all. The family fractured under the strain, with Steffi accusing Brooke of hiding something, Thomas defending his mother Taylor, and Eric pleading for unity as his own health deteriorated. Days developed into stressful waits. Ridge moved slightly, babbling incoherently, his fingers jerking toward Brooke's. Doctors warned of potential brain damage and memory loss, the same problems that had previously plagued him. The killer remained at large, casting a shadow on every Forrester meeting. Theories circulated in tabloids, fan forums, and private chats at Il Giardino and Forrester Creations. Was it Brooke, motivated by a final betrayal? Is Bill diminishing competition? Is Sheila releasing her wicked side once more? Thomas is snapping under pressure? Or someone unexpected, Carter Walton, whose allegiance had been tried, Luna, with her own secrets, or even Hope, protecting her mother in an ill-advised act? When the truth was ultimately revealed, it shattered alliances once more. For the time being, Ridge was caught between life and death, the pool of blood a vivid reminder of how love in this world frequently ends in violence. The home, once a symbol of grandeur and legacy, now seemed haunted. Every creak in the floorboards and shadow in the corridor served as a reminder that danger lurked within the household. As the community waited, breath held, for Ridge to awaken, or not, the question persisted. Who struck down the man who had always risen again? In the bold and the beautiful, answers were rarely clear, but when they did, they left scars that were deeper than any wound. The inquiry continued, suspects were circled, and the Forrester family braced for the discovery that had the potential to destroy them from within. Ridge's life hung in the balance, as did the future of all they cared about.